on the other industry.
And how long did it take to turn that around?
I'd say a good year and a half.
Wow. Were those your headache years?
Yeah, had other headaches from that. There was definitely moments where it could have gone the other way.
Tell us, what's the difference between, why would somebody want to use Uber versus Lyft? What's the difference in your cultures, the way you look at things? How do you differentiate? And also, how have you avoided some of the conflicts and some of the media fiascos that Uber's unfortunately had to go through for their business?
Yeah, so we have some really important key values within the company. And where that's felt by the customer is that we care a lot about the people that are involved in our business. That starts with our team members, what we call our employees, that extends to our drivers, and then to our passengers. The passenger is the ultimate customer. But if we don't take care of our employees, and if we don't take care of our drivers, then they're going to get a bad experience.
Right.
And that to us is obvious. That's kind of the hospitality, concept from the beginning. And so that comes out in many different ways. So on the driver side, we've innovated on products that allows drivers to get paid in the same day. We were the first to do that. It took them over a year to our competitor Uber to get that. We were the first to offer vehicle rentals for drivers that didn't have vehicles or didn't want to use their vehicle on the platform. Uber was doing 3-year kind of predatory loans and leases for their drivers, and we said that's not what's best for drivers. And so there's probably 100 examples like that of things where we said what's best for drivers will in the long run be best for our customers and then for Lyft. And I think that's paying off.
Let's talk about no drivers.
Yeah.
One of the concerns I have, and we have some mutual friends, Peter Diamandis and so forth, is what's happening with AI around the world is going to change. It's not just blue collar jobs. It's going to affect high collar, white collar jobs.
Yeah.
But specifically, there's 5 million people that are Uber drivers, that are Lyft drivers, that are taxi drivers, that are truck drivers. What happens? When is your timing on going driverless, and how does that affect the drivers that you have currently? What's your mindset? Is there going to be room for both because people are going to want a driver? What's your mindset? And what's the timeline?
I think that's right. So one, I think there'll never be a need for less people in cars, whether they're drivers or hosts going forward. I think we'll need a lot more people in jobs that are within vehicles.
Explain what you mean by a host then.
Yeah, so I think, and also I'll talk about the timeline as well. I think this will play out over the next 20 years. And within the next 10 years, I think car ownership will become mostly optional in our cities. Within 5 years, you could see the majority of our rides being done in an autonomous Lyft. But Lyft and Uber combined today account for just 0.4% of miles traveled in the United States, just 0.4%. We believe that's going to go to about 80% of miles traveled in the United States will happen on a network, which is what we call ourselves, a transportation network. And so over that time, and we have a few kind of growing parts of our business in non-emergency medical transportation, where you'll always have someone helping someone else get into the car. Okay. We'll have family travel. And then I think for higher occupancy vehicles, you now think about it as a bus or a shuttle. I think you'll actually have rooms on wheels. So you can imagine a cafe on wheels.
Yes.
You can imagine a movie theater on wheels. Wow. And in all those experiences, you're going to want people involved. And as a company focused on hospitality, we're absolutely going to want to take care of the people that have helped us get where we've gotten and add humanity into every experience. So with just 0.4% of miles traveled today on Lyft and Uber, as we go towards 80%, whether we get fully there, if it's what we predict, or even halfway there, you're going to need a lot more people involved in that transportation.
I know right now, if you look at Tesla, they're collecting data for big data better than anybody else because every one of those cars is going. And I understand I live in Florida, and they're going to vote on a law, and supposedly if the law is agreed to by the population, next year you can push a button and your Tesla will start to operate itself. What's the timing for you? What are you guys looking at before you start to introduce these driverless cars?
So we'll have pilots even starting, I think, at the end of this year with companies that are going to launch their product on our platform. So we can serve as both just the network where others take their technology and run it on Lyft, and then our customers are able to get access to it. There'll be pilots this year and next year.
Who are you partnering with?
So we've announced that at the end of this year is Autonomy. We've confirmed that we're working with Waymo, which is the autonomous unit within Google. One of our big investors is General Motors. So there's several partners we're working with on this. And then we also recently announced a program we're going to be building parts of the autonomous system ourselves. And that's critical because there's a lot of layers to this technology stack. There's maps, there's perception, there's the hardware. And so becoming experts ourselves and making sure we have leverage in all those conversations and other paths in case someone wants to hold their technology for themselves is important.
So you're anticipating. Where do you see, where do you see Lyft 5 years from now? I mean, obviously, if it's point 4, your story of growth is still a great story of growth. You just raised some more money. Where do you see the business 5 years from now?
Yeah, so I think where people thought at the beginning of the days, this was this funny company with mustaches, and maybe it's a taxi replacement. It's gonna, in 5 years, we're gonna move a lot closer to this idea of being a full replacement to car ownership, right? So people will still use cars, but why would you want to pay retail for parking, for insurance, for fuel, for all these things, and use up space at your house? You can get your garage back because we can have a car outside your wherever you need it, within a minute or two.
Right.
And so I'd say, and we'll go from that 0.4% to somewhere on the path to that 80% of miles traveled. And in doing so, people will subscribe to Lyft plans, just like you have a miles plan on AT&T. A minutes plan on AT&T and Verizon. You'll have a miles plan on Lyft. Instead of getting your music, you used to buy CDs and DVDs, and now it's streaming.
Yeah.
Transportation will become a service, and that'll be a big part of our business.
And what's the difference for someone, I'm sure you've done the estimates, if they're going to decide they're going to get rid of their car, obviously it depends how far they travel, but if they decide that they're going to use one of these services, Lyft, every day of their life, have you evaluated that? Can you give us an example?
Absolutely. I think people are starting to do this already. They'll say, maybe I don't need a second car, because a lot of times when they got a second car, they were solving for those extra use cases where they didn't want to be stuck, and you can easily do that now. So the average American household spends $9,000 per year per vehicle. And so our Lyft Line product, which is a shared ride, if myself and you request a ride to the airport, we could be matched together and get a lower cost. That on average costs less than $9. Let's say $7 or $8. But let's use $9 for easy math. You can get 1,000 rides a year instead of that $9,000 you spend on owning and operating a car. Now, I don't think most people think about all the expenses that go into car ownership. They think about that $200 car payment a month.
Not the insurance and
not all of it. So we're going to have to do some education about the true cost of car ownership and provide the alternative.
What do you think is going to be the next big challenge that you're going to have to face organizationally?
So we're hitting a new scale. We're just about 2,000 people at the company. And I think maintaining culture, which has been the thing that we've done that I'm probably most proud of within the organization, and moving fast as we get bigger will become harder. And so I think those are the things that we're going to keep our eye on.
And how do you filter at this stage so that you keep that culture as the company gets that big? What are the 2 or 3 things you do? Because as you know, as you get larger, it gets harder.
Yeah, I saw you talking about ownership.
Yes.
That's really critical to us, and that's really important to us going forward. There's no time for someone to say, you know what, that's so and so's job. It's so and so's line of business. It was on them. Like we're trying to cut any instance of that out, because one, it helps us move more quickly, and it ensures that people get things done.
What you've built